I'm joined now by a very special panel. Jacob Weisberg is, of course, editor-in-chief of Slate. He also spoke to Stormy Daniels during the critical period of negotiation that we're talking about in the 2016 election for his reporting. Christina Greer, a fellow at NYU's McSilver Institute and a friend of the show, and Shelby Holliday, a reporter for the Wall Street Journal and friend of the show. Jim Moret, not a friend of the show, just a great guy, a correspondent for Inside Edition, who's here.
Be a friend.
You got to work towards it. And you're here, as you know, sir, with your first on-camera interview with Stormy Daniels earlier this year. We're looking at some of the outtakes of that. I will begin chronologically with you, Jacob.
Because I'm the youngest.
Based on everything you've reported on this story, what stands out to you in this filing?
Well, first, I've noted that Stormy Daniels has been entirely consistent in her story. So what she told me when I didn't know she was talking to anybody else in the summer and fall in 2016 matched perfectly what it turned out she had told In Touch magazine 5 years earlier, and it matches what she's saying now. So just from the basic point of view of credibility, I believe her story. And
you believe her?
I do believe her. I believe it happened the way she says it happened. I don't believe anything Donald Trump is saying. What I'm not quite sure about, and this is a question for your legal expertise, civil suits against sitting president generally can't proceed. Now, the Paula Jones case when Bill Clinton was president was a contrary example. Will this suit go forward? Can she sue the president in this way while he's in office?
Well, there's a very good argument against this going forward, and that is that a president can't have all their time taken up by this kind of things, particularly if they're a magnet for suits, frivolous and otherwise. And yet, Shelby Holliday, the entire Clinton impeachment dated back to the court saying something else, which is that sometimes presidents do have to sit for civil depositions and partake in these kind of suits.
Right, and there's obviously legal implications for doing something in your personal life that's completely unrelated to being president and whether or not you can be sued for that. I think there are a lot of, it's like an onion, this story. You just continue to peel the layers. Since my colleagues at the Journal broke it, we've learned that Michael Cohen set up an LLC, that his payment to Stormy was flagged by the bank, that the bank that received the payment had opened an investigation a year later. So there are questions about whether a subpoena was served or if investigators showed up. We have not seen the end of this story, but I think what's really interesting today is that the White House is saying this case was won in a politically weird way, and it may not be legal. They're bringing Donald Trump into a story that they've spent a lot of time trying to say Donald Trump's not part of this story. He didn't have the affair.
Well, let's slow down. You just hit it on the head. The old argument in defense was nothing to see here,
right.
And the new argument, well, you just
happen.
play right. This didn't happen, and the new argument, as you're elucidating for us, Shelby, as the reporter that you are, the new argument appears to be something did happen, and we won.
But also, if you're to believe the president and the White House, did Michael Cohen just go around paying people $130,000 because they had a fake story to tell? Like, everyone would be going to this man and coming up with allegations. That just doesn't happen in the real world. It's not politically believable.
So, I mean, there are very few things about Donald Trump that are politically believable. We do know that he has a long history in New York of using pseudonyms, so this pseudonym is not odd or an aberration. We do know that Donald Trump has definitely interacted with characters across the entertainment spectrum for 30 some odd years. So it's not out of the blue that he would come across Stormy Daniels in a sort of social setting, the way she is stated. We do know that this is a man who has not released his taxes. So as interested as we are in this particular story, I'm sure Mr. Mueller is also interested, because it's not just about improprieties before he became president. It's also financial dealings, which is a larger conversation.
You link to the taxes, which is not a reach. You're linking to the fact that the entire Donald Trump experience, if you will, is one of...
I went off of this ride.
is one of seeking attention, but not exposure, by which I mean attention that he can control for his spectacle, but not actually releasing the facts and the scrutiny that other candidates, other people usually do.
But what he doesn't understand, and we've talked about this several times, is that this is not dealing with a building inspector in Queens. This is the presidency of the United States, and it exposes who you are genuinely. It's not actually an office that you can hide behind. So the past... it feels like 12 years, but the past 16 months that we've seen Donald Trump as president has been a consistent lie after lie, sort of firings and hirings, and then Sarah Huckabee Sanders essentially standing up and lying to the American public.
It's only been 16 months?
16 months?
It feels
It feels like 16
longer.
years.
Let me read to you, Jacob.
I've got gray hair.
Let me read to you the. Let me read to you the Bob Mueller piece of this vis-a-vis Michael Cohen, who we learned from the Sam Nunberg grand jury subpoena is one of the people they're requesting information on. Mueller looking at negotiations Cohen may have taken during the campaign to help build a tower in Moscow, and a Russia-friendly peace proposal for Ukraine delivered to him by a Ukrainian lawmaker. That's according to the Washington Post. So Michael Cohen is to put it in the legal parlance, of investigative interest.
Yeah, and it does look like he was going beyond what a lawyer normally does here. He was a kind of capo in the Trump organization, and I use that term considerately. I think it looks like what's happened here is two of Donald Trump's character flaws have run into each other. He does bad things and pays people off, but he's also a cheapskate who doesn't pay his bills. Well, if you're going to pay people off, you better pay them. He got this whole Stormy Daniels story surfaced when I was originally talking to her because he wasn't paying her. He wasn't signing the agreement, and he wasn't sending the check. And at that point, she thought he was going to leave her hanging, as he has left the contractors hanging at building projects all over the country.
There's another legal issue with that, too, as my colleagues reported the other day. He had been complaining that he hadn't been reimbursed for this payment. So there are questions about whether or not it was really his money, as he said it was, whether or not the candidate knew about it. The legal legs are just continuing.
Right,
damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? If you pay blackmail with your own money, that's bad. And if someone else pays blackmail money for you, that's on top of everything else.
The entire part of this, that no one can say what the money is from, that Cohen has publicly now admitted the payment, but can't say the source of the money, is dodgier than dodgeball. I mean, either it was Trump's money or it wasn't. It was Cohen's money or it wasn't. And Jim Murray, as you know, what Cohen said, that he facilitated a payment, was classic lawyer speak for trying to obfuscate whose money it was, because he didn't actually ever say it was only my money, I was the original source, and no one paid me back. So I wonder your analysis of that as someone who's been keeping an eye on the story, as well as let's play a little bit from your interview with Ms. Daniels when she was dealing with what she calls a required silence by implication. Take a look.
Have you been paid to keep quiet? Have you signed a non-disclosure agreement? Are you frustrated that you can't talk about these things? You clearly want to say, you're looking at me like you can't talk. I'm taking this that you can't say anything. Is that accurate? I'm taking that as a yes.
You're so pretty.
Jim, what did you learn?
I learned she thought I was pretty. I know now why she wasn't talking, in all honesty. I looked at this agreement, and it's clear that if she breaches the agreement, she got paid $130,000, but according to this agreement, she owes Donald Trump or David Dennison $1 million for each breach. And when I heard Sarah Sanders say today that they won in arbitration, I also went back to this agreement, and it does call for arbitration ex parte. You could seek ex parte relief for injunction if you think that Stormy is about to talk, which is what they're claiming. So the fact that Stormy Daniels didn't get notice of an arbitration is spelled out right here in the agreement. The question, though, also now as to the signature. Donald Trump didn't sign, but he could argue, well, wait a minute, I performed. I gave you $130,000 through my agent, through my attorney, so I've performed. You know, there are so many layers to this, and it's so fascinating. She does have a new lawyer now, which also speaks to her new tact on why she's attacking this now, and she didn't perhaps a month ago. But there's a lot of things to sift through, Ari.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, you're getting deep into the contractual language for arbitration, Jacob, and the signature argument that she has would be weak, as I've reported. I mean, that's just not where she's likely to win. But what do you think of the idea that there might be, allegedly, a lot more of these out there? Can these all stay hidden?
Well, we know there's another one about Jessica Drake, which Ronan Farrow reported on in The New Yorker the week before last. I don't know that the signature argument is that weak, because this wasn't like forgetting to sign. This was not signing because he didn't want Donald Trump's name on the contract. And if you're not willing to commit your name to the contract, I wonder about the validity of the contract. I'm not a lawyer, But that
But
doesn't
do you-
sound
but-
like a
but-
ridiculous argument to me.
But do you play one on TV?
You play one on TV.
Does it matter that the name
I'm a
is
friend
David
of the show.
Dennison?
Yeah. But,
Does it matter that the name is David Dennison?
No, it doesn't have to. That legally doesn't have to
But I mean,
matter.
but we
have to
We
go.
need
I
to
have
remember
real
John
quick.
Edwards. I mean, he didn't pay the money, but someone facilitated it on his behalf.
Right, and look, there's a lot here, and we welcome all different parts of the debate, which I think we're getting, which is why this is probably not going away. I do have one announcement to make before we go. Jim Murray,
Yes.
you are, as of this moment, a friend of the show. Thank you for coming on the beat.
Thank you, Ari. I appreciate that.
And my thanks to Jacob Weisberg, Shelby Holliday, and Christina Greer. Up next, we're going to go live to Capitol Hill.